A Married Life Guide 1. Chapter 1. Marriage as an Institution. History of Marriage. The history of marriage basically parallels the history of love as discussed earlier. In the past, when men ruled the world, marriage meant everything to a woman. It was her ticket to having some means of support and some status in the community. Very briefly, I figure that marriage was first created as an institution within civilized society because the wise elders of some tribe somewhere realized that in order for the species to proliferate, men had to be tamed down in order to hang around and raise the kids. They couldn't just have sex with any female they came across whenever they felt like it and kill each other off fighting for the right to have sex with who they wanted to. They had to be made to feel responsible for their actions, both in order to help raise the children they spawned and in order to be respectable members of the community who bowed down to the wise men, the elder council, or whatever the governing forces were in the primitive world of the beginnings of human society. These elders came up with a great idea. Create a ritual where men were bonded to one woman or several for life who they would love, take care of, have sex with exclusively, and help raise the children they spawned, thus having something they could call their own which they could pass down through the generations and, in effect, become kings of their own little domains. The institution of marriage was created to simplify life, to prevent fighting over the privilege to have sex with the prettiest, young girls. You simply picked one, two, or several girls, and if you could provide for them, you bought them one by one from the parents, whereupon they came to your house to do housework, have your children, and help out with food gathering. Marriage also had the political motive of creating alliances within the community, such that now that you were related to your neighbor by virtue of marrying his sister or daughter, there was less chance of bashing his head in over some little dispute. Marriage helped cement tribal loyalty and united previously disparate tribes together to fight against other alien tribes from another area. Although there was arguably some love and affection involved, these people were brought up in cultures totally different from ours. We don't know what they were thinking. I suspect the woman's place back then was akin to the way we treat a pet these days. We give them affection and let them have their fun, but we're the bosses, no ifs and or buts about that. The Judeo-Christian tradition changed all that. The Holy Bible elevated women to the equal status of men as his mate, except for the term to obey him, but that's been argued as a symbolic point to simply put the man as the symbolic head of the family, abolished the concepts of polygamy, adultery, homosexuality, etc., and reduced life down into the one-man one-woman union in marriage sanctified by God with the command of be fruitful, multiply and spread the message of Jehovah Jireh out into the world. The European world was bound by the Christian tradition of marriage right up until the Enlightenment of the 1700s, despite the brief wisps of emerging romantic love throughout history discussed in an earlier section. At about this time of worldwide expansion, world trade, and the Industrial Revolution, the religious forces lost much of their influence and power, Western European society became secularized, people became freer and more decadent, women's suffragettes came onto the scene, and all of a sudden marriage just wasn't a religious and patriotic duty anymore, it was a quest for love and personal fulfillment, with women demanding respect and a say in the decision of who they will marry, unlike before when men made all the decisions regarding marital choices. This was when the concept of the companionate marriage came into vogue, a forerunner of today's concept of the equal marriage. In essence, the concept of marriage changed from a man's ownership of a woman to a limited partnership to an equal relationship where the guy had better do some of the housework, change some diapers every now and then, tell his wife he loves her and treats her that way. The sociology of the institution of marriage. There are two prevailing ideologies about the institution of marriage in society. On the one hand, the Christians and right-wing conservative types believe in the Genesis version of the family, one man, one woman who multiply by having as many kids as possible to add to the glory of God's kingdom on earth. The other side are people who are, for the most part, not actively campaigning against the institution of marriage or family, they're just people more interested in living their own lives, doing what they really feel they want now that they've been freed from the traditional family roles so prevalent up until the 1950s. It could be someone who simply feels they're more polyamorous than monogamous. There are fetishists, cross-dressers, kinky sex people, sex addicts, and others who simply want to do their own thing unconstrained by marriage and family. The diversity is good, although you wouldn't know it if you listen to a few religious shows on the radio which defend marriage and family values vehemently and seem to want a homogeneous world with everybody in a monogamous male-female relationship, working a job somewhere, paying a mortgage with several kids, all loyally going to school and then church on Sunday as a family. I have no animosity towards this way of life, it's just that I realized a long time ago you shouldn't be something you're not, even if the culture wants it. Some people were not born to get married and have children. Thank God the world is freer now than it was 50 years ago, otherwise people like me would feel terrible for all the pressure to conform to society's marriage and family rituals. I realize God said one man one woman in the Bible, but God created me, therefore I feel that everything that comes from my soul is right because it comes from God, so I feel all love and sex with love is good, even if done in transient relationships with different people. God made the human race a rainbow of diversity. Some of us are meant to raise families, others are meant to be explorers and adventurers. Still others will violate their souls and be parasitical, useless bums. A marital relationship, in order to be good, takes the kind of commitment some people just don't have any inclination for. The religious and political right blame the moral degradation of society on such things as TV, a corporate culture based on money and material things, a culture of pop culture, violence and sex all over the place, the absence of God in public schools, the ease of getting divorces, not taking marriage vows seriously, premarital sex, booze and drug abuse, and the mainstream media which seems to promote the single, casual sex lifestyle over the traditional family values marriage. All these factors contribute to a breakdown of the institution of marriage in society. There is a backlash to some of the lewdness and crudeness we see out there in music videos, racy TV commercials, etc. Some people want to go back to the seemingly simpler times of the traditional family life rampant in the post-World War II era. Some young people raised in this era of free love don't want to be part of it, so we have a modest return to old-fashioned courtship in some religious circles where a guy and a girl spend time with each other's families and get to know them slowly as friends over time without being alone, intimate together, a kind of modesty movement to protect the sacredness of the marital vows. They don't do anything intimate until they're actually married. The right wing say it's a double-pronged loop. The degradation of society leads to marital instability, and marital instability, such as with all the many single parents with their unruly kids, spawns a bunch of angry, confused children who have no idea about family values, so they go off and add to the moral degradation, thus it keeps spiraling out of control, all fed by the crap on TV. The right wing say that divorce is bad, it ruins families, messes kids up, leave both parents financially worse off than before, and ruins the sacredness of the marital vow. When you can get a no-fault divorce anytime you want, there's no commitment left in the institution of marriage. Love is hard in a consumerist society where you throw it away if it doesn't work and get another one. How many people really understand love as a spiritual union of two people loving each other for who they are? I don't see true love all that much. I see the illusion of love for the first few years of the relationship, which I grant to any new couple, but watch them after 3 years, then you will see how much they really love each other, and it's not really all that much because we're raised to be self-centered in a materialistic culture geared for consumption to please ourselves, and we're self-centered by nature anyway. It takes true love to get beyond our self-centeredness enough to love others the way they really want to be loved. I think divorce is a good thing because it means you weren't soulmates in the first place, and whereas 50 years ago, you would have stayed in a loveless marriage for life, nowadays, you have the option to get out to free yourself and try again. You shouldn't have gotten married in the first place, but you did, and now hopefully you learned from your mistake. The Christian right has made some good strides in strengthening family values. They now have modesty/virgin movements for young people, men's groups like Promise Keepers, premarital counseling, and marriage workshops in general where couples go to reinvigorate their commitments to each other. Just listen to Focus on the Family, family.org, and it will help keep the family bond strong. If you want family and marriage, go for it and commit to it 100% for life. Don't be a hypocrite like all the people who get married then cheat on their wives, get bored, fat dumpy or break up for one reason or another. Make sure you know exactly what you're doing before you commit, get in too deep and leave a couple of heartbroken kids around. There are no easy answers. Like I said, I think diversity is good, but we also need some standards if we don't want to degenerate into the likes of Sodom and Gomorrah. But truth be told, I'm not worried because I know what's on TV and reported in the media is often over-sensationalized fiction. The truth is that most people are very conservative in their approach to life, and once the partying rebellion of youth is gone by about 28 years old, just about everybody tries for the white picket fence family ideal because this is the standard we've been sold on as the key to happiness since we were kids, and besides, the political pendulum is always swinging. The free explorations of the sexual revolution have been replaced by a society that's freer but more underground now. You find your little circle of like-minded people and do whatever it is you do with them in a discreet atmosphere, not like before when it was free love and everybody was sleeping around. There's plenty of room for every flavor. If the right wing wants more families, they should start embracing the homosexual family more. A lot of gay guys and girls want to live normal monogamous lives as parents in families. Some single women want to have children but don't want to get married. 50 years ago a single parent was considered a bitch and her son a bastard. Nowadays, you have that option if you want it. In longitudinal studies of married couples from engagement to 10 to 20 years later, the biggest causes of marital strife are money, past habits, or baggage coming back on the scene after marriage, and some kind of addiction one has, like alcohol, drugs, gambling, food, sex, etc., or even a hobby that takes all the time from the relationship, like soccer, cars, internet, etc. In the end, there's no consensus. Society is neither depraved or boringly traditional. It's a good mix. We have freedom of choice now, which makes it better for everybody. You can choose what you want, a monogamous family life or anything else you might desire to do with willing volunteers. Try hashtag 306.81 or HQ536 at the library for books about the sociological aspects of marriage and family. My analysis of marriage. Nowadays, women are equal in the eyes of the law and basically equal in real life, so they don't automatically have to get married anymore as the only path to happiness and / or to avoid the socially stigma of being perceived as a weirdo because they're single. Women have as much say in choosing a man as a man has about choosing a woman. It has to be mutual. Women don't even have to get married to have kids. They can either conceive with a guy who won't be involved as a parent, have artificial fertilization through an anonymous donor, or adopt a child if they want. They say that up to 40% of all babies born in the US these days are born to single mothers. Women can earn their own money. They don't need a man to take care of them if they don't want one. If they don't want to have kids and raise a family, they don't have to take this route. This drives the traditional, conservative forces crazy, but this is the way it is these days. I think it's a positive move forward to have all this freedom, but despite all these options coming onto the scene, the truth is that even with all the freedom out there to do your own thing, only a small segment of the population uses this freedom because most people prefer the traditional route. Some people, like teen single mothers, have made mistakes and / or have been manipulated by guys to have sex with them, while others, like single career women, have kids because by the time they're ready, they can't find a man to marry, so the biological clock is ticking. But these subgroupings are relatively small groups of people who receive proportionately more press in the media than their numbers would justify. Sure, the concept of the family is changing, as I've written about in my family book, and most girls will have sex before marriage, but when the glitz gleaned from frivolous women's magazines and a frivolous pop culture media wears thin after several years during the early and mid-20s of your typical Western, capitalist individual, the overwhelming truth is that at least 90% of all women want the traditional family life, despite what they might say about trying to be free and liberated, and the men aren't far behind. I think it's a loneliness thing and a culturally entrenched thing. We want a certain comfortable intimacy with a small tribe that's all ours, and the family is one of the few ways we can get it. The concept of marriage and family is not going anywhere soon. Despite all the hoopla in the media through advertising and TV shows that play off advertising trying to create a cool, fun, free, happening lifestyle out there somewhere, most people will tire of it at some point in time and want to marry. Many people who have tried for love 3 or more times through marriage keep trying. Believe me, the institutions of marriage and family are still strongly held by most people as the only true path to their personal happiness. It's not going anywhere. Most people aren't strong enough or interested enough to try to live interesting lives alone following their free whims. They'd rather live an interesting life with a mate, but most settle for an average, slightly dull life with a mate, and they accept it because it beats being lonely. The footloose, fancy-free lifestyle is geared for the arena of youth. People over 40 are generally not welcome into the partying, hedonistic, freewheelin' social scene of capitalist nightlife, so they look to marriage to keep them satisfied. Why do most young people go to nightclubs anyway? To look for a mate. Most people want a lifelong marriage, but because of a high divorce rate only about half will get it, and of those that do, how many will be truly passionate grand slams versus friendship marriages of convenience? Married people want to be loved, adored, and confirmed by their partners as being worthy of love and great lovers themselves. They want a shared life together. It takes devotion with love. The average wife these days doesn't want to submerge her identity into that of her husband, but simply wants a more equitable, loving relationship where the husband is willing to lower himself enough to do some of the menial household chores which has been traditionally relegated solely to the woman. This is the symbolic threshold. The work itself is not as important as the husband saying through his actions, "I love you so much that I will break from the tradition of the wife as the lowly housekeeper to do my share of it to show that I truly love you and want us to share our lives together equally." This is the crossroads we're at. Some men will get over their male egos to aspire to make their wives totally equal partners, but most will have an element of traditional chauvinism left in them from a culturally entrenched convention that has been dominant since the beginning of the institution of marriage 8,000 years ago or so. There is a strong backlash to the female liberation equalization thing. In some elements of male culture, the cool thing to do is to rebel against the ideal of the sensitive, hard-working, monogamous man to be self-serving pigs who do what they want, screw whoever they want with disdain, beat up on whoever they want, and flaunt their hate for government and everything establishment. You see it in certain pop culture entertainment products, this anger being expressed by men for being pushed too far, toppled from their throne, and a lot of them don't like it, which is one of the reasons we have a male macho subculture that likes to get drunk and leave everything in the so-called civilized world behind. It's too corny to have to conform so totally and tame their primal sides down so much so despite all this flowery talk about the equalization of marriage, a lot of men will not give up that much of their self-perceived power to any woman no matter how highly they think of her. She has her place, and that's just the way it is. There's a book out there called A History of the Wife, 2001, by Marilyn Yalom, HarperCollins.com. Try hashtag 306.872 or HQ1206 at the library. Chapter 2. A Good Marriage Guide. A Good Marriage. At this point, dear reader, let me concede one shocking truth. Some young women actually anticipate the wedding night ordeal with curiosity and pleasure. Beware such an attitude. One cardinal rule of marriage should never be forgotten: give little, give seldom, and above all, give grudgingly. Ruth Smithers, Instruction and Advice for the Young Bride, 1894. You both uplift and heal each other. You don't live in a fantasy. You see each other as you are. You talk regularly and say what you like and don't like about the relationship. You are constantly thinking about the love and how to be good to him or her. You try to please your lover all the time. You know how angry you can get and try to control it as much as you can. You try to make the relationship better by being together, doing things together, and reading love articles, books, etc. You try to be a noble, inspired individual. You try to be loving and whole. You accept the bad times and know you have to work at it sometimes. Relationship expectations and boundaries. When you commit to a monogamous partnership, You are responsible to keep the intimacy going. Talk about the relationship just before you commit, about what you expect from each other. What should the relationship look like every day to each of you? Chapter 3. A Husband Guide. Be a great husband. 1. Have a job. Bring home enough money to pay the bills. When you make a promise, keep it. Don't say meet me for supper then not show up. When you get angry, the best thing to do is to leave the situation in order to cool down so you don't do anything that will get you arrested. Don't bring work home. The easiest thing that kills romance is the guy checking his computer before he goes to bed. Real men don't do frivolous things like play video games or watch sports on TV. My father never did it. I don't. Life is too precious to be a brainwashed clone. Guys want to be heroes, the fixer, the know-it-all. That's his way of showing love. Let him show love his way. Do housework without being asked to. Wash the dishes and vacuum sometimes or hire a maid to do it. All you have to do is show an emotional connection, which is accomplished by listening when she talks and act like you care. Make every Sunday special. Cancel your subscription to the Sunday paper. Instead, help her with the dishes and do something with her outside of the house. Go for a Sunday drive every Sunday, even if just to buy vegetables at a roadside stand. If you want to be a super great husband, drop the strong, silent macho act. Be your real self. Show her your emotions. Forget about sports on TV. Spend the time with your family doing something. My father came from the old school in Poland. He wasn't raised on TV sports, so he spent his weekends doing things with his family. The one thing a woman wants is for you to put her at the top of your list of everything in life. It's not a game of conquest like you got her and that's it. You have to validate your love for her every day. Just remember that for the rest of your life and you will be all set. Be a great husband too. Nothing makes a good wife like a good husband. Do not marry someone unless you feel absolutely sure that you have good odds of lasting a lifetime. Don't marry someone for what they can do for you. Marry them because you love them and want to have a spiritual life union with them. Make the home a sanctuary for the marriage. Don't have relatives and friends over too much. It should be your family to be together and feel comfortable with each other. If you have others living with your family like your in-laws, the interference could destroy the family. Continue the romance and the courtship. Talk to each other every day for at least 4 minutes so it goes deeper than a few headlines. Men by nature don't care to talk much, but you have to talk in order that your wife does not misperceive the silence as him not loving her anymore. Try to make your spouse happy, try to love him or her more than he or she loves you. Treat her like a queen and she'll treat you like a king. Hold your tongue. Think twice before you're too suggestive as in wanting sex or before you criticize. Act out of love. Silence is often better than a negative statement. Loving people don't criticize. Men want sex more than women. If she doesn't want it here and there, don't push it. If she never wants it, you should not have gotten married. Get a divorce. Do your finances together in order to be on the same page, since finances is one of the top reasons people divorce. You have to be on the same page in life with the same dreams and goals. If the wife wants kids and the husband wants to invent the next big thing, that's not good enough. You have to be united for what you want. If you're religious, don't marry someone outside of your religion. Agree that you can fight and bicker, but you will try to solve problems as opposed to getting divorced. Keep the marital communication closed to other people. When the husband tells the wife something, he does not want her to tell her friends about it. If you do, he sees it as mistrust. He has to feel he trusts you. Don't gossip about what your husband tells you. Be loving. That's what a marriage is about. Encourage one another. Don't make assumptions about your partner. Women like to be noticed if they clean the house, got a perm, or are wearing a new dress. Tell them. Don't overdo work at the expense of the spouse. Respect each other's privacy, personal space, and leave them alone to do things by themselves without asking a bunch of questions. Be clean. Be modest. Help with the housework. If you're a slob like I am, pick a room away from the room you share and put all your messy stuff in there. Speak softly and kindly. Do not neglect your wife. Talk to her. Be nice to her. Be reasonable on spending money. Don't buy golf clubs or a big truck when your wife needs a new stove and some home repairs. Try for a marriage that is heavenly. Successful couples have boundaries / they give each other lots of space, privacy, and freedom. I realized marriages were bad when my brother's wife came up to my house looking for my brother who was out drinking. We were barely in our mid-20s and she was so possessive of him. When you're young, you're taught that romantic love is all-encompassing. It's not. The hormones go down, then you decide if you want to make the commitment. If you do, you have to find a balance. A person like me is constantly trying to be true to myself by releasing my natural energy. I know that everybody is ultimately a loner. Nobody can earn you self-respect or euphoria but you. Two people can have a good time together, but ultimately most of your life is spent alone in your head, so you have to be true to yourself and not try to muckle onto another person to relieve your personal feelings of emptiness and loneliness. Couples try to set boundaries like: who are our friends? What are we free to do alone? What do we share? Do we go to bed at the same time? Do we combine finances? Whose name is on the deed? Will you visit my family every Christmas? We see how much we can step over a line before a fight starts. It's better to talk, be friends, and be loose and easy with personal space. The most successful couples don't micromanage each other. Love yourself. Treat your partner with love. Be careful when you have just fallen in love that you don't smother each other and lose the glow because it's too much. Don't be an eternal pleaser. Don't give up your identity for your spouse. If you do, you'll never be happy. I read stories of regrets from women who gave up a career and hobbies to be stay-at-home moms. After your children leave home, you need to do new things to fill the void. It's not quantity of time, it's quality. Have one night a week for romance and adventure. Relationship boundaries are flexible, always changing. What about boundaries in bed? Most women don't like anal sex or even giving oral sex, but guys think this is normal because of watching porn. Don't feel bad though. Based on all big sex surveys, sex goes way down after the first year of marriage despite all the lies from people and the media pretending they're having great sex as a couple. Don't mess with your partner's boundaries unless you want a divorce. I know that relationships are supposed to be about never-ending expansions of love according to psychobabble, but get real. Most people are mundane to start out with. After they get married, they go to work and they're always tired. Come home, eat some food, talk to your spouse for 10 minutes. That's a good relationship. Don't marry someone not like you. If you're thrifty and your partner burns through money buying useless things, you're asking for trouble up front. Some spouses expect things. Suppose your wife wants you to drive her to work every day. Suppose you don't want to. How long will that last before you get tired of it, i.e. angry, feeling used? Have boundaries, but if you really love each other, be open to talk and work things out. Is a guy allowed to look at other pretty women? Are you allowed to flirt? I gave up on monogamy because it was too far away from my true nature. Nobody can be truly honest with each other, but everyone fancies themselves an artist of their lives, so where is the happy medium? Some people are really sensitive. It's best to give them space. Let them define the boundaries. To me, setting boundaries is taking care of yourself so that you can give more of yourself. Help yourself feel good, then you feel good about being a good spouse. Relationships over time involve sacrifice. Love requires sacrifice. steveandreas.com/article/boundaries.html. Chapter 4. Marriage Topics. After the honeymoon. You're only good as long as you're useful to each other. Many people enter married life with stars in their eyes and set themselves for a really big fall. It happens all the time. People think that after the wedding bells, something magical is automatically gonna happen, but they don't realize that the magic is within themselves. They have to make it happen and give up those TV illusions of la-di-da, cutesy, everything's alright in TV land, families living in a sitcom. I was listening to a radio show the other day and there was some university in England, I think it was Cambridge, where they said forget about the 7-year itch. They did some big study about marriage and love. They said the love is virtually gone, or people are out of love with their spouses by 2 years, 5 months after the marriage. The illusions are all gone. The couples that stay together are more like roommates than lovers. They said it. I didn't. There's disillusionment in every marriage when the masks come off and you see each other for who you really are, just ordinary people making your way through life. Don't necessarily blame the other person. Don't feel betrayed. Work on working it out. You will both take some time to get acquainted, then once you've done that, you will both settle into the relationship like an old shoe. You will know what to expect from each other, good points, bad points, sticky points, what makes the other tick, etc. You each set invisible comfort zones and boundaries. This can be good or bad depending on how you look at it. It's either complacency or friendship, mere acceptance or true love. When you wake up for the first day of the work week after the honeymoon, know that this will become the regular routine for your life. After all the hype and fanfare, this is it, normal life, except that now you will be sharing the bed and the bathroom with someone else. A few people will ask you how the honeymoon went, then after a few days everything in your social life will be mundane and normal again. You will be relegated to the statistic of another married couple, and your special status as soon-to-be marrieds and newlyweds will be gone as you take on day-to-day life. The wisest thing you can do is to not have high expectations of a fantastic change in your lifestyle. It's still you alone in your thoughts as you live them day by day, regardless of a spouse around or not. Life may not even be so pleasant as to degenerate into mundane normality. It may get much worse than that, with all the pressures of the real world, as with work, money, stress, car problems, mortgages, credit ratings, babies, medical problems, etc. When all this crap hits the fan, will the romantic love still be there, or will you both curl up into your shells and neglect each other? You will find out some negative things and bad habits of your spouse. You may feel depressed because life is so plain, like you haven't changed at all. It's just that now you're living with someone who seems like a stranger at times. If you still feel comfortable with him no matter what and feel like you will have a good to great life together, there's hope. If there's ambivalence to your partner as soon as 3 months after the marriage, it could be a warning signal that you married the wrong one in the first place. Just like mothers get postpartum depression after delivering a baby, so too can couples get the post-wedding blues when they see each other as they really are on a plain day after all the excitement of the wedding planning. The wedding itself, then the honeymoon, is a faded memory. Compound this with a difference of opinion at some point in time and you've got your first fight. How you treat it after it's over will set the mood for the marriage. Can you handle disagreements and fights without destroying the sanctity of the marriage? Some people can't. Their egos are too strong or weak, take your pick. They can't subordinate themselves to another person in any way at all, so once they get into a disagreement, they hold a grudge forever, even with a spouse. If that's you, maybe you shouldn't have gotten married in the first place. That's the kind of guy I am. I make my own decisions about how to run my life and my house. If anybody gives me static, screw them. Nobody tells me what to do, which is one of the reasons I'm not married now. I had too many mouthy people around when I was younger trying to tell me what to do. I can be a nice guy but start imposing on my life and getting in my face and I see red. Nobody tells me anything because I got it all figured out for me, and there are a lot of guys and girls out there like me, and because we're so dogmatic about our lives, sometimes we're too independent to make good lifetime partners in an accountable way with anybody. I may temper with age, but then again I may not. If you're a couple who didn't spend any time living together before the marriage, and if you're young to boot, under 30, be ready for drastic changes to your lifestyle. It ain't like dating, no matter how much time you spend together and how lovingly you look into her eyes. When you're dating, you have your own private sanctuary to go to alone at night, your home, but when you're married, you're stuck with each other all the time with no place to escape to. So be ready for this dynamic, which means adjustments and compromises. So if you're a slob who likes things his or her own way, either be rich enough to afford a big house such that you can have several private rooms for yourself, or don't get married in the first place. I've seen the worst of humanity, and I can see it every day when I watch talk shows, so I know that not everybody is like me with my nice, Catholic, middle-class upbringing. There are a lot of evil people out there, and they approach relationships that way. They will play cutesy, then change to their real selves after the honeymoon wears off. If you feel that someone is truly doing something evil or spiteful, don't stay. Leave immediately. Leopards rarely change their spots. Make your spouse the top priority. Give her a hug and a kiss when you come home from work and tell her you missed her. Be appreciative of her. Don't go to bed angry. Solve all problems quickly. Don't try to be right all the time. You can't change anyone but yourself. Most people lose that loving feeling to some extent after the honeymoon period wears off, so the trick, if you really love her, is to make her feel loved, to fulfill her emotional need to be loved by showing it in both romantic and practical ways, like doing the housework. The greatest insight you can have about a relationship is to realize that love is not necessarily a mysterious, intangible feeling off in the clouds somewhere. When the two of you get real after the honeymoon phase of the relationship, what you see is what you get, and what you must realize is that love is just like a muscle. You can change it and make it better through hard work, or you can let it atrophy through neglect. The critical question is, do you feel more like me than we? It comes down to freedom and independence versus the desire for a shared life together. Some people can't do it despite getting married, so they will assert their independence in other ways, like work long hours, hang out at the bar, or get deeply involved in a hobby like sports or computers. The other critical question is equality versus the dominance of either gender. Equality in the major issues is good, with the male taking a lead as the provider, the woman taking the lead as the homemaker in charge of the house. Conflicts usually start soon after the marriage, when the delusion of the perfect match fades. They could be anything: lifestyle, religious rifts, different political views, a feeling of being swallowed up in your own identity, what TV shows to watch, money, anything. Give each other space, privacy, and respect. Share yourself for the deepest things, like your values to life. Make a commitment to bond together. Many men often seem to change 180. They got the girl, they accomplished the mission, and now they can go back to being the real slobs they are. Although I don't want to come off too simplistic, I believe that most conflicts in the first year of a marriage stem from seeing this person as they really are, with all their warts. It didn't turn out the way you thought it would. Once again, that's reality. It could be his fault for being a bum. It could be partially your fault. That's where team effort and the work part come in if you want it to work. You have to really get to know each other. You have to talk and change and work on it. If you love him, you have to love him through the thick and the thin and make it work. Despite differences in many areas, look for a common ground which unites you and keeps the relationship strong. Happy couples keep their own identities, accept each other as is, spend time doing things together, spend time doing things alone as individuals, have fun, believe in the permanence of their relationship, and are able to change as the relationship changes. Don't set unrealistic high expectations, and be ready to change your life from just you to the two of you as a couple, which is probably the biggest change you can ever make in your life. It's a new untapped frontier. You will be charting new territory with every step you take. One of you will probably be moving out of your home territory to be with the other. Be ready for some lonely feelings, and try to find some friends and or a pet to help deal with it. The major issues are sex, romance, career, home, and children. Try to find a meeting of the minds and a balance in all of them without going overboard in any of them. In order for a marriage to succeed, there has to be true love there cultured over a lifetime. Every day, you have to show you love each other by loving to be with each other and showing it through what you do naturally because you really love each other. You're happy just being together enjoying each other's company. Celebrate your anniversaries with something special and romantic as a kind of victory of love that you lived another great year together. To help out your practical concerns, real estate books are at hashtag 332.6 to 333 at the library. Family law books are at number 346. Money books are at number 332. The medical section is hashtag 610-619. Fitness books are at hashtag 611-613. Sports books are at hashtag 796-798. Religious books go from hashtag 200-299. Stress and relaxation books are at number 155 to 158. Gardening books are at number 635. Pet books are at number 636. For consumer books, try number 640. For cookbooks, try number 641. For household books in general, try hashtag 640-649. Parenting books are at number 649. Job books are at number 331. Business books are at hashtag 650-659. The first year of marriage. Marriage, like life, is always up and down. There's no vacation. You can't protect yourself from the uncertainty of life. Wise old fool. True marriage is not my devotion to you. Nor is it yours to me. True marriage is our devotion to us. Lois Weiss. The first year of marriage traditionally marked the symbolic crossing of the threshold from your family of birth to creating one on your own, but in today's world, what with later marriages, divorces, multiple marriages, and living together before marriage, one would think that the transition doesn't appear to be all that drastic, but it is. The typical first year of marriage starts out with fear, passion, and generally an optimistic nervous energy as the duo consummate the afterglow of the honeymoon and settle into a day-to-day routine. This is reality, unlike all the TV garbage we've been brainwashed on. Regardless of their past, whether they've been married before or lived with each other before the marriage, this is the symbolic, permanent fresh start filled with excitement, hope and expectation. They each have to make adjustments and ultimately learn to forego the little things in favor of the greater whole, the relationship. There will inevitably be differences, conflicts, and problems. Successful newlyweds will not get thrown by this. They will have a good attitude towards rationally and equitably dealing with the rough spots and talking them out. Based on all the wedding documentaries I've seen, my conclusion is that most men are pretty calm about them, but a lot of women, generally the bride and the mothers, worry about everything, are scared, wonder if they're making the right choice, and fret over this new life they're moving into. Then on the wedding day at the reception, they all seem happy that everything went off without a hitch. I personally feel that society makes too much ado about it. You do it as an act of faith untested, which is what life is. There are generally three options: a good, happy marriage, an average, mundane marriage, divorce court. It's very simple. In this era of quickie divorces, you have the option to get out if it doesn't work. If you think I'm being sacrilegious, consider the alternative. 50 years ago, if you got married, that was pretty well it. Even if you hated each other, you still stayed together out of tradition, but nowadays it's better, you can cut your losses and split. Back in the old days, if the husband beat the wife, the cops wouldn't do anything unless he almost killed her. Divorce is a great option, especially if you draft a prenuptial agreement that says if you split before 5 years, you each take what you brought in, split the rest with no maintenance payments. Setting positive patterns early on is important. Happy couples reaffirm their love for each other on a daily basis and deal with their problems straight up. They're intelligent enough to know that they just won't go away if left unchecked. They deal with them in a flexible and compromising manner. They will meet each challenge with strength and understanding, then grow and mature as they evolve together into something greater than themselves. Marriage has a sacred, mystical, spiritual bonding sense of permanence to it, so almost everybody makes a big deal about it. I remember talking to my brother on the morning of his wedding day. He had been living and working with this girl for the previous 3 years, but now, all of a sudden, he had the jitters. It was a big deal to him, not just a formality. By far, the biggest stumbling block is that the two lovebirds didn't take the time to learn about each other much beyond the lovebird part. Many people fall into the same old trap of looking at somebody, going googly-eyed for a minute, tying the knot, then waking up strangers in the same bed 6 months later with a kid on the way and bills up to their tushes. That seems to be the typical American dream turned nightmare these days. The fact is that during the courtship phase, you try to be as attractive as you can and hide your faults. Then when you get married and you're both stuck with each other all the time, the truth gradually seeps out, like if you're a slob or a closet smoker or whatever. I've known several girls who dieted themselves thin for the wedding day, then within a year or two they were chubbier than ever. The solution is to be as honest and open as you can right from the start, but barring that, when you eventually discover who your real spouse is, you can either leave and cut your losses early on, or accept them for who they are and don't try to change them, because it will just cause animosity. Learn to bend, go with the flow and ignore the trivial crap. Don't play the blame game and don't get angry, but if you do, learn to control it. Cherish the happy times. Say what you mean and mean what you say. People aren't mind readers. If you've got a problem, talk about it. Don't assume anything. You will never get your partner to love you by being negative and trying to make them feel guilty. Learn to communicate by reading each other's feelings. Comfort is fine, but quite often one or both partners gets bored and this can lead to problems. You might need a spark to keep it interesting. During this time, all your expectations of what it was supposed to be like shatter as reality sets in, but that's fine because it's part of the learning process. Your mate either turned out to be a dud, alright, or a great person. In my opinion, you have to question whether they're the right ones for life. When I watch the talk shows, what I see is many people who get married and their mate turns out to be a dud, cheater, bum, etc., but they stay because they're insecure and afraid to go it alone. It's a big mistake to stay with someone you don't really love. Get strong and get out as early as possible. Sure, try to repair a decent relationship, but in most cases, a dud is a dud is a dud, so get out. I don't like buzzwords like low self-esteem, but it seems to be a common theme among women's TV networks for all manner of women's problems. Many women are down in the dumps and they stay that way, stuck with some loser because they're losers. No one's holding you back. Get up off your butt, learn some computer skills, get a job and leave the bum. You say it's hard. It looks like a mountain. Everything was hard at one time for everybody. Except for a few lucky ones, anyone who's ever made it in life did it with a lot of hard work. That's a golden rule of our capitalistic society: you work hard and get a good life. For whatever reasons you originally got married, you will find that as time goes on, there will be a lot of changes and movements such that you will evolve into something different as a couple, which will go the way you take it, either good or bad. You have to learn the dynamics of the marriage and accept that there are some things you can't change. In-laws and friends of your mate could pose problems. They usually either hate you or like you, but in this case, they're less important than your marital bond, so you can tell them to shove off if they turn out to be spoilers. The wife might be so close to her best girlfriend that the husband doesn't like her sharing everything about the marriage with her. The wife might not like the husband's buddies hanging out with him every night of the week. The solution is simple. Make an active proposal to do more things with your wife and stick to it. Once again, get a dog and together take him to the park every day after work. You can count on several things happening during the first year. The hot from the fire sizzling passion generally cools off. The dream ends and reality sets in. The couple can either disintegrate right there if one or both are weak or suddenly can't take it for what it is, or they can go on and strive for a harmonious life together. Many marriages are gone within the first year. They will have to find the balance within themselves and work through those ambivalent feelings, mixed emotions, and occasional doubts because they will, in all likelihood, have doubts. A good rule of thumb to establish from the outset is that when either of you wants to be alone, tell the other and he respects that, then it's your move when to break the solitude. Don't start to treat him like you're his mother. Give him his space. If you're having relationship turmoil, don't make the mistake of thinking that a baby will make you a happy family. Try to get on an even keel before you take on the responsibility of bringing a child into the world. Don't use a child or the prospect of children as a solution or a punching bag in the marriage. Think about it before you do it. And don't start hanging out with your friends like you did before the marriage. Don't criticize each other's friends out loud. Try to make friends with them. Don't give up your friends just because he says so. Talk to him about it. If he's a dud about it, you might have to leave him. Be wary of keeping opposite-sex friends. It's a very delicate area unless, of course, she's a 54-year-old nun. You might have to sacrifice a little bit of those friendships for the stability of the marriage. It's the way it should be because temptation is always lurking close by, underneath the smooth, polished exterior. The two of you together should strive to go out and make new friends as a couple, preferably other new couples or even older ones who've been together longer. And don't use money as a tool of power. If you're the breadwinner, be equitable with it. If you both work, keep a joint account but keep individual accounts too. Each keep the pact to put their equitable share into the pot. I feel strongly that the woman in the home, even if she has a few children, should consider some kind of part-time job, even just one shift or 10 hours a week at a video rental store or as a waitress in a coffee shop. It keeps you close to the work ethic and out in the public. It's good for her and takes some of the wind out his sails if he's thinking about holding his position over her. In either case, don't spend money on stupid things. Become a wise consumer and work for the good of the family, not necessarily to buy that nice dress because you're feeling lousy. You have to talk about money in a cold, rational way to bring you both into the same headspace about it. The number one cause of marital strife in the financial realm is the misuse of credit. Young couples get into deep debt, then they start fighting and blaming each other. 80% of all divorces are due to money problems. Develop a budget or a money plan. Money does not grow on trees. Educate yourself, number 332 at the library or My Money book. Balance work and marriage. There's a lot of pressure on the man to make it, but don't stop smelling the roses. This your time together now when you're young to do things and enjoy each other. It's like someone once said, at the end of a life, nobody ever wishes they had spent more time at the office. If you're a workaholic or the job's getting to you, do some serious soul searching and try to change or even change jobs if you have to for your own sanity and that of the marriage. Try to keep each other up to date about what's going on in your jobs. Most newlyweds feel that they would like a fulfilling sex life, but many are inexperienced and don't know how to express themselves to consummate fully. The first thing is not to get caught up in the hype that it should be fireworks all the time and everyone else must be doing it, therefore, we're deficient in some way. Get rid of the pressure, talk about it, relax and turn the romance on. Use sex to get closer to each other in a deeper, more basic way, kinda like, she's your woman and you're gonna love her to death. Finally, when you make it through your first year, you should take a weekend off, go to a romantic getaway, watch videos of your wedding and have a good old-fashioned attack of nostalgia. There will be some regrets, but you're still together. You made it. You changed from me to we and navigated through some tough waters. There are several nostalgic songs out that long for the good, old days like memories, try to remember, and those were the days. Remember, these are your good, old days right now, don't let them pass you by. Someday, believe it or not, you will look back at these days of your youth as the best days of your life. You're only young once. If you lose that youthful spark by middle age, the enjoyment of life is over. The DIN syndrome means double income, no sex. Watch it if that's you too. The DINK syndrome is double income, no kids, which means you should both have enough disposable income to enjoy yourselves. The good wife. The qualities of a good wife listed here come from a woman's round table made up of some Christian women and some feminist women. Be like your mother. Chances are she was somewhat traditional, so copy the way she took care of the house, and your father. His expression of love is work. Yours should be to keep a clean house and cook good meals, but even though these are your functions, marriage should not be an arrangement of conveniences, it should be a passionate love affair. Examine yourself to see where you throw up obstacles or try to sabotage the relationship. What are your defenses to keep from getting too close and having to reveal yourself beyond your comfort level? Try to identify them, then focus on overcoming them. Many of us are afraid to open up because we think it makes us look foolish and puts us out there revealing a higher level of intimacy than our mate wants, so as a result, he doesn't return an equal level of love and you feel spurned or cheated. The best way to deal with this is to give love anyway. Love is never wrong. It's his problem, not yours. There is also the revenge, tit for tat game, which is bad for a loving relationship. You will have problems. The successful couple works on them together rather than taking adversarial sides and trying to get the other back. You should try to be a mix of masculine and feminine qualities. The way it works is that frustrated, angry people who got into that mood by something that was probably unrelated to your husband often take out the frustration on him because he's convenient and you know him well enough to take liberties in unloading some of your crap on him. But when you feel like this, do like I do. I leave for a while, go for a jog or something so I can cool off and see that it's better to keep my mouth shut than bring up a bunch of trivial crap just to release some anger in that moment. Exercising helps me release anger. If you feel your relationship is only so good, you either have to try to make it better or get out and look for the stronger type of love you really want. Many women are not satisfied with the quality of the marriage, but I suspect this is the way it is. There are not enough men out there for all the women who want romantic mates. Most men are meat and potatoes, so pick the right man up front if you want a poetic, romantic mate. If you feel you're not getting emotional commitment from your husband, you have to make a decision as to whether you'll try to get something out of him, accept him as is, or get out. Love comes down to passion and tenderness. Love consists of a circle of intensity where you lose each other, then find each other again, and the circle goes round and round. Everybody wants to be loved as is without conditions. Be his friend. Every man wants an attractive wife who is a soft friend. Love is not urgency. It's a slow, relaxed comfort together. Sex is relevant and so is making love. Do a bit of both, the carnal and the romantic. When sex is compromised, the husband gets frustrated. Try not to live in melodrama. Try to become more like your husband. Don't ponder on the past like all the psychobablists want you to. Live more in the present. Give your husband his boundaries. Be as close as he wants, then give him his space. Love is to be secure enough to make each other feel safe enough to be real. There's a difference between developing a dependency and developing a mutually loving relationship. Try to develop the relationship for love's sake only, not as a security crutch for your weak, insecure personality. Keep your mouth shut rather than blame the husband. The key is always communication, empathy, and listening. Love is admiration. You have to idealize your husband somewhat, put him on a pedestal. Love is acceptance, accepting him for who he is and loving him for it. Love is hope for a great future. Be compassionate. Give him some slack. See it from his point of view. Some forgiveness is good, but not to the point where you become a doormat. Try to break from the routine now and then to do something interesting and bonding together. Be good to your in-laws. Trust your instincts. Make him feel good about being with you. If you're manipulative, your husband will pick up on it and resent you for it. Selfishness is a normal part of human nature, but if you can mutually serve each other, then each gets something out of the deal. This is the key to wedded bliss. Reciprocation is not favor for favor, it's an attitude that signals you're willing and open to embrace the relationship. Don't get depressed and downtrodden. It affects your family. When bad times hit, deal with them as well as you can and keep moving on. Don't criticize yourself too much as many women do with regards to weight and look. Try to look good but not to the point of obsession where it detracts from the marriage. Do not talk a lot about frivolous things or things that affect only you. He's got his own problems. Give him some free space. Don't be too nosy with questions to him. Be interested in his life but not overwhelming. A true lady shows restraint and moderation rather than being a shrieky emotional basket case. Don't gossip to your friends about the personal parts of your relationship. Try to be a loving person of all people. Some husbands want to share their careers with their wives. Others don't. Respect your husband's wishes. A part of your leverage to him is to stay mysterious. Be a little reserved as opposed to trying to pour your heart out to him all the time. Be a little bit glamorous as opposed to household practical. It's always a golden mean balance in everything. Don't make the task of housekeeping and child rearing a chore. Approach it with happiness. Don't be so serious about it that it robs the marriage of joy. Keep a balance of your own identity with the identity as a couple. It's good to take time for individual development because only then will be happy enough to give all for the marriage. Your husband will love you more if he sees an interesting person. There's love and there's creativity. Have a balance of both in life. Don't spend money frivolously, especially if you don't work and spend his money. Try to find another wife, preferable someone older to befriend and give you marital advice when you feel you need it. Don't buy into the consumer model of marriage, which means don't believe too much of what you read out there. Be more intuitive, flowing, and simply focus on love rather than trying to live out the cultural ideal of the happy couple with a picture-perfect life. The state of the marriage can always be gauged by the emotional warmth between the two. Unfortunately, it's only natural that there are dips and lows, so when this happens, if you want to get it back, you must take steps to get emotionally close again. It comes down to relating. Focus on relating to each other, touching bases emotionally all the time. Parental interference. In the Bible, it says the man must leave his parents to become one with his wife. The couple must always come before the parents. There may be problems with the in-laws, particularly mothers who try to jostle for control and influence in the marriage. They sometimes don't want to give up their children and may develop a hidden animosity for the person who took them away. Watch out for this. It could happen. For political expediency, it might be a good idea to befriend your spouse's mother. Take her out for supper with you alone or with you two as a couple. Talk about your in-laws with each other and put up a united front in your dealings with them, no playing each other off against the others. A good idea is to equitably make time for each set of parents and do something nice for them, like invite them over for supper and or a movie. You could even invite both sets at the same time to try to start off with good, open, happy vibes right from the outset. If conflicts come up with the parents, well, that's tough. You could try to talk them out, but often them old birds just ain't into giving in to some young whippersnapper, so inevitably, many newlyweds end up distancing themselves from their parents. It's a fact of life and a tough call as to what to do. Peace offerings are good, babies could be good, but who knows? I always go by the Christian approach. I will bend over backwards to be decent, but if you wanna be an idiot, I don't have to take it, and I won't let you make me feel guilty. Nobody has control over me, nobody ever will. Some people test you to see if they can control you. There are many control freaks around, particularly domineering mothers. By not taking it, I don't mean fighting back, no, that's never right. Simply get up and absent yourself from the situation. It's that simple. If the mother, because the father rarely meddles, has got a brain, she will realize sooner or later that she's wrong, in which case don't rub her face in it, just treat her like a respectable human being. If you find yourself torn between two loyalties, Your first loyalty should be to your wife unless she's been evolving into a real bitch lately, then you gotta call them as you see them and try to be a fair guy underneath it all. Always strive for peace. I sound like a broken record here, but it's my belief that it's all so simple. There's either right or wrong, and we usually know in our guts where it's at. The mother-in-law, your mother, and your wife, the daughter-in-law, being ladies, have a special relationship unlike that of the men involved. Women, by themselves, can be strange creatures, often engaging in a silent game of competition as to who's more the lady among them. The daughter-in-law is on her own for the first time, trying to set up a household, and the craggy, old mother-in-law comes along and puts her self-righteous 2 cents worth in. It's an old stereotype that dies hard, but it needn't be that way. Mother-in-laws should simply be nice and cordial and shouldn't interfere unless asked to. Let her learn on her own. Let her fail and make her own mistakes. Daughter-in-laws are generally nervous and want to get it right. They feel bad if the mother-in-law rejects them and often blame themselves. Don't judge her because maybe she's a Jew and you're a Catholic, or she comes from a poor family while you're in the social register. Try to treat her right from the beginning. Be nice to her, treat her like a good friend. After all, she's with your son and you want what's best for him, right? If you're still holding on to your son, get over it. His rightful place is now with his wife. And daughter-in-law, if the mother-in-law wants to dote over her grandchildren, if she's a decent person, let her. You need a break anyway, right? The two of you should do things together and try to become friends, or at least be cordial to each other. Respect each other as equals, not superior subordinate as tradition would like us to do. Work together for the sake of the family. Marriage vacation. Individual growth enhances a marriage. To my way of thinking, if you want to live a full life at least while you're young, don't get married in the first place, and if you like your free time and are married, don't have more kids than you can realistically handle. If you want to be a complete person, experience life first, because when you get married and settle down, you will eventually start to lose yourself to the demands of the family. When you feel yourself slipping away, read my book about free spiritism, then make plans to get away anywhere from a weekend here and there to a year, including everything in between, men and women alike. Men often go fishing with the boys on the weekends or go on business trips alone, which gives them some time away from the family to relax and center themselves. Separation is good for a relationship, like a weekend with the boys or a night out with the girls. Don't underestimate it. Remember the old saying, absence makes the heart goes fonder. If you really love her, the break should bring you closer, even more passionate. One couple said the way they got together after they lost it was to rent an isolated cabin for a month where there was just them two in the woods spending time with each other. Most couples barely spend 10 minutes a day together, much less 24 hours. It might just renew your marriage. Vulnerability is not a weakness. You're often two lonely people in the same house. You have to get past it and open up to each other. If you don't work on the relationship, open your heart, make time for each other, take an interest in each other's interests, talk and listen. Some couples keep an open journal where either one can write comments in it anytime they want and the other will read it at some point in time. Middle-aged marriages get stale because you've become two chubby duds. Things change, like the kids leave, you get sick, you retire, you get bored, you get a midlife crisis, etc. Don't expect it to ever be like the old days again. Look to a new beginning. Redefine yourselves. Find yourselves as individuals and as a couple. Ask yourself if you're happy as a couple. If not, take a break for a while by yourselves, then spend some time together and see if you can develop to a higher new ideal, but if not, break it off and go your own way as an individual. To love is to free the other. Let them do what they want. If they're yours, they will come back. If not, they never were. It's generally frowned upon for women to go away alone, but there are some women's tours out there as described in my travel book and spot type vacations, or you could just go to your cottage if you have one, or rent a hotel room somewhere just to be alone for a few days to take it easy, to reevaluate your life and find your soul again. There are short cooking school vacations, pottery workshops, arts and crafts retreats, hiking, bed and breakfasts, writers' retreats, and anything you might be interested in doing. There are many retreats out there which I talk about in my travel book. An alternative is for the man to take the kids on a vacation for a few days, leaving the wife at home alone, or the wife could go on a short trip with her girlfriend, her mother, or her mother-in-law. If you have a friend who's leaving town for a few days, ask if you can stay at her house for a day or two. The man and the woman should sit down and each talk about getting away for either a few weekends or a full week here and there while the other tends to the house. It's part of the flow for living a full life, like that line in that old Chicago song, "Everybody needs a little time away." If your kids are grown up and gone, by all means, do what you gotta do alone, like the guy who sailed around the world solo alone, or the guy who walked the Appalachian Trail leaving his wife at home to give her some time alone away from him too. The psychology behind it is that you get away to renew yourself such that you find yourself enough to want to come back and be with the family again, so it's living life as a balance of being true to yourself versus living for your family. You have to get over your guilt feelings for doing it and realize it's part of your life flow. Reassure your spouse that you aren't abandoning him, just doing what's necessary to recharge your batteries. It's cheaper than a divorce or a nervous breakdown. Teach your kids to be independent, to get along without you. Tell them that by you getting away you become a better parent when you get back to them. Even single parents should get away. Explain to a friend or relative that you need time away and give them the kids for a few days. Do many vacations at home. Tell your children you need some free time to do things like sleep in, read the newspaper, give yourself a bubble bath, etc. No kids ideology. We live in a world geared for couples having children. You even get rewarded for it in your income tax returns. Psychobablists have discovered that having or not having children has no effect on happiness either way. Most of the people I grew up with were married by 30. When I asked them why they had kids, several couldn't actually tell me why. One said it was because that was the next logical step for the marriage to go. Another said it was just the natural progression of life expected of you: get married, have kids. This to me is brainwash. Many people weren't meant to be parents and don't want to be parents. If you have kids for a reason not pure to your heart but out of cultural brainwash, you're doing them a disservice by bringing them into the world with this attitude. It's no big deal if your seed is not passed on. That's too egocentric an attitude just to have children. You should have them out of love for the process of raising them. The culture is geared for children, that both men and women want children and will have them. I read a case of a 35-year-old guy who had to go to 4 doctors before they'd give him a vasectomy because they assumed he should have children. A lot of women are not really nurturers even though the culture assumes they are and want kids. Just look at the legal system and see all the parents up on charges for endangering or neglecting their kids. There are several support groups out there for people who don't want kids by choice. Some people just don't want the hassle or the responsibility and want to live their own lives freely. Many people are scared of the enormous responsibility and think they might not measure up as parents, but life is a gamble. Nobody starts out a perfect parent. Whatever you do, never say never. Wait until you're in your 60s to get a vasectomy or a tubal ligation. There are lots of reasons not to have kids, like the world is screwed. I don't want to raise bratty kids hooked on pop culture. I want to be free to do what I want when I want. I'm not maternalistic. I want to have sex every day. You raise kids who always oppose you, then they leave. Kids are expensive. They're greedy consumers hooked on fashion and pop culture toys. Raising kids is hard work. You can never show children that your life is really a drag. You have to act happy like it's worth it. Parents do not know how to deal with kids properly. Parents feel guilt then work hard to earn money to buy them stuff. You have to help them with school and everything else. Your identity is more than parent. What do you do if your kid turns out to be a lazy bum? The DIN syndrome means double income, no sex. Watch it if that's you too. The DINK syndrome is double income, no kids, which means you should both have enough disposable income to enjoy yourselves. There's a book by Laura Lyle called Without Child, Challenging the Stigma of Childlessness. No kidding. NoKidding.bc.ca. No Kids support group made up of adults who choose not to have kids. Cost of raising a child. Babycenter.com/cost-of-raising-child-calculator, cost of raising a child calculator. babycenter.com/babycostcalculator.htm. npc.umich.edu/publication/working-papero/papero4/Bradbury time costs npc.pdf, time and the cost of children.